Now, the right time with Bomani Jones on ESPN Radio.
And ESPNRadio.com.
I get a lot of blues from y'all about my bad predictions. I come up here, I own it, man. Stand tall like a man, you know, some kind of other cliches like that. But I do that. I always show up after I've said something that proved to be utterly ridiculous. I do that. I stood in the face the last time we were on in the face of something that I didn't even say that was ridiculous. But I did that. I held on for that. I dealt with that. And now y'all about to bow down. Every single one of y'all that's listening right now, if you on the other side of this, you're about to bow down. Now, I have said Warriors in 6. I'm still saying Warriors in 6. But I'm not talking about the larger predictions. See, no. I got to take the small victories. I've come to understand that part of this job is that when you make predictions and they go badly, everybody remembers them. But when you say something and it goes right, nobody cares. It's just what you were supposed to do, right? You know what another part of this job is? I'm the one with the microphone, and I get to talk until I feel like stopping. And as long as I'm not cussing, there's really nothing anybody can do about it. Now is there? So what I tell you was going to happen in Game 4? What I tell you Golden State need to do to win? All right, the obvious ones, like, they need some other guys to make shots. Draymond Green's got to start making some shots. Okay, that one was obvious. But the big one I told you was, look, you got to find somebody to play off of if you're Cleveland. If you're Golden State, rather. Like this whole, we're just going to let LeBron go wild thing. Okay, that went about as far as it was going to go. You got to let some guy on the other team basically beat Cleveland by beating himself. Somebody has to be the guy to do that. And who did I tell you that guy was? I told you that dude was Matthew Dellavedova. Because once you got away from all the storybook stuff, you fundamentally got to the point where you realized he doesn't shoot the ball very well. Right? Like after you got past all your grittiness and all your scrappy-doo and all that stuff like that, the dude hadn't been hitting shots. So I was like, that's the guy that you need to try to go out here and make him beat himself, and then everybody else wins. Look, man, first minute of the game, Dellavedova gets the ball, and he takes the MVP into isolation. He scored, too, by the way. He took Curry to the block like he was Mark Jackson in 1997 and got that bucket on him. He was feeling it, boy. He was feeling it. He went 3 for 14 for the game. Sean Livingston blocked one of his shots and grabbed it out of midair with 2 hands. Draymond Green had a time where he just took the poor guy's cookies. Like, you went and you watched that game and you realize, look, man, the dude had been in the hospital a couple of days before. He had questions to ask about what his legs are going to be or everything else. But let me tell you, I think somebody heard all that hero talk that you were giving him. I think somebody heard, I'm the second best player on the Cleveland Cavaliers. And he went out there trying to ball. He went out there trying to take cats to the basket. It looked like somebody's little brother who they let hit some buckets the first time they played, and now he's feeling himself. And even though he's 7 inches shorter than everybody else on the court, I'm going to take the ball to the lane. And that's what you had. All those other dudes, they just didn't show up. Like, their legs are going to go. The longer the series goes, the better it is for Golden State. I told you every single one of those things, and y'all were calling me a hater. Oh, are you not watching the games? You can't see what's going on. You know what happened in Game 4? LeBron James didn't score 40 points. Like, did you ever envision a scenario under which Timofey Mozgov would score 28 points and the Cavs would still get blown out? Like, still lose by 21? Like, you figure if you got a night where Mozgov gets 28, you got to win. Like, if Mozgov's getting 28, that's a good 20 points you hadn't counted on. Well, that didn't work out so well for him. Now did it? Now, I don't want you to think I'm blaming everything on Dellavedova, because the reality is the second best player on this team should be J.R. Smith. We always said that they were it's not a good place to be in when you got to depend on J.R. Smith. You don't want to have to depend on J.R. Smith. J.R. Smith did not hit a single three-pointer. He came to the game and that whole thing, the skateboard with wheels and a motor, You know, it was real futuristic-like. And then he went and played like the old JR. That's real unfortunate. That's real unfortunate. But as some of you guys know who listen to this radio program, we got a phone call the other day from a gentleman named Justin who lives in Ohio. You may remember Justin. Here was Justin telling me something that I already knew.
2-1, buddy. 2-1.
Remember that? He told me it was 2. Hit him with that 2-1 again.
2-1, buddy. 2-1.
It's 2-2 now, just so you know. He was also talking that it should be 3-0 stuff, if I recall. Anyway, that's Justin, boy. Justin called, and he was so mad, and he called me so many different things and was so upset with me. We got some more angry Justin.
I just want you to know when the clock hit 0, I thought of you. When I woke up this morning, I thought of you, and I smiled.
One more time.
I just want you to know when the clock hit 0, I thought of you. When I woke up this morning, I thought of you, and I smiled.
You're thinking of me right now, Justin? Were you thinking of me when you woke up? Are you thinking of me right now, Justin? That's all I want to know. You called up here talking that restraining order stuff. I get to ask you a question. Are you going to call back today?
Answer me.
Yeah, that was the call before. Like, that wasn't even the same one. Like, once, all I try to do, this is what I try to help you guys with, right? This is really all I can offer for you. I'm not so keen on narrative stuff. I'm not so keen on storybook stuff. I don't wind up getting swept up in the emotion of what I want something to be. That's just not how I operate about my sports. All I can do is take what's actually happening out there and then bring it back to you. Now, very often you come in here because you want to get wrapped up in the narrative. You want to get hugged by the story. And that Cleveland story was rolling for you so fantastically. So I bring up, well, you know, the Warriors have actually scored more points in this series. Oh, all of a sudden I'm some kind of hater, right? Well, you know, the Cavs really haven't played that well. See, you just can't give them credit for anything. They hadn't. Like, nothing really fundamentally changed for Cleveland in Game 4. Golden State made the adjustment, and they played a whole lot better. But for Cleveland, they won Game 2 shooting 32% from the floor. 32% from the floor. Dellavedova didn't shoot well in Game 3. He didn't shoot well in Game 2. Well, what did I think he was going to do in Game 4? He wasn't going to shoot well. And then he didn't shoot well. Like, it was all right there for you. And, like, for my people in Cleveland, I feel so bad for you because I feel like you guys got your hopes up about what was going to happen, completely ignoring everything, not only that you've ever seen in your lives, but what you actually saw in the series. It was right there. So, look, there are 2 days, there's extra day rest involved because it's Thursday, Sunday, as opposed to playing every other night when you make this run. There's a chance for Cleveland to rest up. They had 2 dudes go to the hospital after Game 3. So Game 4 was going to be a tall order for them regardless. But if they had to go to the hospital that time, what makes you think they're not going to have to go again? Because that's what it took for them to win a close game. Hey, man, I'm just trying to help you out. That's all. And in the meantime, because it doesn't happen enough, and because nobody's going to say it if I don't say it, bask in how right I was. Just this one time.
2-1, buddy. 2-1.
Yeah, 2-2 now. Bask in how right I was. Just do it this one time. Do it for me. I'm working on Friday night to make you happy, and all you got to do is turn on your radio. Tell me how right I got it, because you damn well tell me how wrong I did if you had the chance. All you busters that were doing that, hit me up everywhere you could find it. Hey, Bomani, you still think the Cavs have no chance? You still think the Cavs got no chance? Tell me what you got now.
Bomani.
Let's go to the telephone lines. 888-729-3776. Guess who's here? It's Angry Justin in Ohio. Justin, did you think of me when you woke up?
Yeah, I thought of you.
Okay.
You know, I just don't get it, man. I don't get how you could just sit here and bash the Cavs. I mean, I understand we're shorthanded. We're missing 2 of our all-stars. And you were so fed up, oh, they're going to win in 6 games. They're going to win in 6 games. If they win in 6 games, good for you, man. It's not rocket science. They should have swept us, dude.
So now you're just changing the expectations.
No, I still have faith in my Cavs.
Oh, wait a minute, buddy. You told me the last time you called that Cleveland had the better team. They played the best defense. They played the best offense. What's up with this now, bruh? Why
Sit
you
here and
changing
say
the
we
story?
haven't played better defense besides the last game?
Well,
We should have won the first game. I mean, come on, man.
Actually, Golden State has scored more points in the series coming in, so you can make the argument
Well,
that
they should.
they had played better
look at their
defense.
bench.
Oh, but you don't sound as confident as you did the last time you called.
Listen, we win yesterday. It would put the icing on the cake. We lost. That's fine. I mean, come on, dude. We're running a 7-man rotation.
Why,
Two of our all-stars are.
Why weren't you saying any of this the last time you called?
What do you mean?
I mean, now it's woe is me, the Cavaliers, and everything that's wrong with them. You were telling me how good
We
they were the
will
last
win
time they
the
called.
series, Bomani. We will win the series. If we won yesterday, it would have been 100%. Now it's just an even series. All we got to do is go and win the next game, which it's probably better because we got a 2-day rest now.
That's all you got to do. Just go win another game. Huh? You're right. You got anything else you need to say, my man?
What's your problem?
I'm asking you if you got anything else that you got to say, man. Look, I'm giving you a platform for America to listen to you right now. I don't feel like you treat me with the gratitude that you deserve. Like, think about this for a second. Who else would let you talk to America? Like, I don't know who they let you talk to on a general basis. Who else would let you talk to America? I'm letting you talk to America, and you treat me with such disrespect.
Oh, yeah, dude. You deserve disrespect. The way you talked about my Cavs, you deserve worse than what I'm saying. I can't say it on the air. You cut me off.
Are you good? Are you done?
Dude,
Are you done?
that's the problem I have with you.
Are you done?
I mean, do you realize next year when we have our team that's fully capable?
Why are we talking about next year? I thought we was talking about next game.
You guys are with us next year when we make it to the finals because I'm going to spank you.
Like, is that what you wake up in the morning thinking about? Let's get him up out of here.
Bomani.
All guests join us on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline, including our next guest. She works as a sideline reporter for Comcast Sports Bay Area. She has been covering the Golden State Warriors. Her name is Rosalind Gold on Woo Day. Roz, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Hey, I am doing all right. You are back in Oakland, I imagine. So how's it feel around the Warriors now? I imagine 2-2 feels better than 2-1 for that team.
Oh, yeah. It's much more spirited. Everybody's excited. The game 4 felt a lot more like the Warriors-style basketball. And, storyline shift so quick now. Every game it's been changing. It's been Kyrie Irving out. Can the Cavs win one? Will the Warriors sweep? Then they pull it all. They steal one, and then it's Zelly locking up Steph. Is Steph in a slump? And now the series is back, right where it started. It feels neutral.
Well, the one thing that was interesting to me watching them, especially after Game 3, was we were watching and they seemed to be dispirited on the court. You saw Steph Curry's head down. Draymond Green looked like he was scared to shoot. Then you talked to them after the game, and they all sounded as confident as they could have been. Like, were they really as confident as they were pretending in the press conferences?
Well, after what game do you mean?
After Game 3.
After Game 3, I think people were a little shaken up. I think this was a different type of punch in the mouth than going down 2-1 against Memphis, because the expectations were different too. With stars going down, and you're not facing with Memphis, you weren't facing LeBron James. What I really saw though after Game 3 was the talk about the heart, the intensity, the effort. Who's getting the loose balls? Delly. Who's throwing their body on the floor? Delly. Who's getting no boards? Tristan Thompson. So Draymond Green, who breathes life into this team, he makes everyone feel a little bit better. He hypes everyone up. He put it on himself. He said that the heart and intensity has to start with me. And I really think we saw a more engaged, more confident Draymond Green on the court, and I think he sparked the team in the first half of Game 4 alongside the start of Andre Iguodala.
All right, we're talking to Roz Gold on Woo Day of Comcast Sports Bay Area. You mentioned Draymond Green. You had reported that his back had tightened up on him after Game 3. We heard this going into Game 4. Health-wise, how is he?
Draymond's not going to tell you. I think he confided that to me in the locker room because of the relationship we had built all season. Like literally in the locker. First of all, the Cavs visitor locker room is a little bit tight. And there's so much media. Oh, my God, everybody's sweating on each other in there. And, so after the scrum around him, all the people around trying to get, their sound bites, they moved to the next player, I stayed behind and I whispered to him and said, hey, how's your back? And he whispered back. He was like, man, I'm in pain. And, I'm always really respectful with my guys. I was like, well, what can I say? I mean, what can I say publicly? And he was like, I mean, I'm tight at all times, Well, then I was like, well, in what situations? He's like, no, all the time my back is locked up, exploding, contact, jumping. I mean, that's the most public in that moment of confiding with me that he's been about the pain. And it actually started in this series in Game 2. It was a third quarter fall. And from there, he's really been struggling with the back pain. And I said, can I say that? And he said, yeah, you can share that. You can share that. That's cool. But since then, in media availability, he has not acknowledged it. I think that's psychological. He also has admitted that his grandmother and his mom reached out to him and said, you're crying too much. I just need you to go out there and play and be tough. And I think that you can't have the guy that's been your heart and your toughness talking about if he's hurt, because as Draymond said himself, it's June. Everybody's hurt. Everybody's injured. Everybody's playing through. And the Cavs don't want to hear that. Tell that to Kyrie. Tell that to Kevin Love. So Draymond's going to be the last one to talk a lot about being hurt. He confided that to me, but he's not going to talk much about it.
All right, we're talking to Roz Gold on Wude of Comcast Sports Bay Area. Steph Curry, of course, the MVP, has been the focus of this series for a lot of people, and he hasn't been as good as a lot of us expected coming in. Is it all just the defense of Matthew Dellavedova, or is there anything else that you've noticed?
Well, first of all, credit to Matthew Dellavedova. I can get down with basketball players like that. I was kind of like that myself as a player. Touchy-feely, aggressive defender, heady with it. So he's doing a lot. He's given his heart. But Steph has seen the best defense all year long. Steph has been incredible. For me, it's surprising to see how the Warriors have looked, having seen them all season long. At times, I have not been able to recognize the team. I think it's a combination of a lot. First of all, Delly is working really hard. He's touching, grabbing, squeezing, bumping Steph off his cuts. It's not even just when Steph's on offense. Steph is getting bumped and grabbed on defense. Like when he's in the screen, if someone's setting a pick on him, he's getting hit hard. He's just getting pounded all game, and that's annoying. So even if Steph has a moment of being open and without a defender, he's been hassled. And he's frazzled in that moment. Also, Delly will be the first to tell you, it's not just Delly on Steph one-on-one. All those defenders are on a string. Everyone on the Warriors for games 2 and 3 had been rushed and crowded. All that beautiful, magical offense we saw, especially when they were operating from the free throw line and higher, all those back cuts, all those nice passes, the space isn't there. They're forcing them to make plays. They're forcing role players to hit shots. And when they have the ball, they're running them off the three-point line and then making them dribble into crowds. And it's physical, and they're holding them off their cuts. So it messes with the mental side of being able to execute when they are in that half-court set. So, and then also I think the last piece too is nobody on the Warriors roster has been to an NBA Finals. And, while a lot of people who are playing for the Cavs haven't, they do have that experience, and LeBron's experience permeates the team. But assistant coach Ron Adams was sharing with me, he was like, they're trying to make it real to these guys, like, hey, we might be able to develop next year and come back and make it here again, but for most of us in this room, this is one time. We'll never be back. And they're relying on the stories from Luke Walton and Coach Kerr trying to make it real to them. What this finals is about, whether it's about tickets, families trying to ask for housing, all the media, everybody trying to get a piece of you, the event, down to the game itself. And I think there's a little bit of that, too, for the Warriors.
All right, got a last question for Roz and Gold on Wude of Comcast Sports Bay Area. You mentioned Steve Kerr, and he's been here as a player, but he has not been here as a coach. Were you surprised that it took him as long as it did to go small?
What I think is the coolest thing about him going small, actually yesterday doing an interview with him, I think this is where he revealed this information in our post-game interview, that the decision to go small actually came from a 28-year-old on his staff, his video coordinator and assistant to the head coach, a guy named Nick Uren. And that's been the latest development, and kind of exciting for him to get. And I know Nick well, so I was really excited Coach shared that. And then, of course, the kind of leader Coach Kerr is to give the credit that way. But Nick Uren came up to him the day of Game 3 and also in a 3 a.m. text was like, we got to go small. We got to start Andre. And you don't want to do anything drastic in the NBA Finals, change your lineup, but they let it percolate. They thought about it. They made the move. He trusts Nick Uren because he was a video intern for him in Phoenix when he was a GM. Years later, he brings Nick with him to Golden State in an elevated role as an assistant to the head coach. Nick's 28, but Coach said in the interview with me, he said Nick is wise and mature beyond his years, kind of like a chief of staff. Nick's also the guy throughout the season. Coach Kerr, I did a sideline report on this. Coach Kerr likes to keep a balanced mindset throughout the year. If you notice, he's very thoughtful in everything he does. Nick will present him with every day an article, a different type of article on different subjects. It could be about a scientific discovery. It could be about trends in social media. It could be about a team that did charity work. It could be about someone who overcame the odds against cancer. But just to give him different perspectives on world news so that Coach Kerr has balance as he makes his decisions around basketball and just also balance as a person. So, I'm just telling the story to say this is Nick's influence, like an example of his influence on the staff. So when he came to coach with this idea in the NBA Finals to have Andre start for the first time of the entire season, he trusted him, and he made that move. And I think for this game, it worked. It gave them the energy to start the game that they needed because they have been starting poorly. There are weaknesses of going big. I think the Cavs had 18 offensive rebounds. Mozgov had a monster game. But personally, I think Andre has been the best option defensively versus LeBron, although there's not much of a great answer defensively against LeBron. But I think it sparked the Warriors. It could be a turning point in this series. I don't know if they stay with it forever. And I asked him about Bogut. I said, what does this mean for Bogut? And I think Coach Kerr was pretty kind of strict in his answer. He was like, well, I told Bogut to be ready. He didn't play a lot of minutes tonight, but he could the next game. I think they need more from Bogut. And Bogut's capable of putting more pressure on the defense for the Cavs and just bringing more from the start of the game. So Andre did that, and it worked out in this game.
Well, we know what Bogut's going to bring from here on out. 6 fouls as quickly as possible. Roz Gold on Woo-Day, Comcast Sports Bay Area. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Geico presents Strange Saving Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Bomani.
Moving on, I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with Donnie Tyndall. Donnie Tyndall was the coach at Southern Miss, and then he got the job at Tennessee as the basketball coach. And see, he got the job at Tennessee as the basketball coach when a lot of people wanted them to hire Bruce Pearl, but Bruce Pearl had that NCAA track record in history, and he got himself fired at Tennessee. It got a little messy. So we don't want a guy with NCAA history. So then they hired Tyndall, and it turns out Tyndall had NCAA problems at Southern Miss, and he wound up getting thrown in them. And whatever the situation was, I don't remember the particulars. I just know it was bad enough that they wound up having to fire Tyndall, and that's how they wound up with Rick Barnes, and they're happy about having Rick Barnes, which tells you a whole lot about what their situation was. Anyway, Tyndall got fired. And, there's no way for the guy to see it coming, and that's an unfortunate situation because this doesn't sound like it wasn't one of those buyout situations. When they fired him, they fired him. None of this, we're going to figure out how to pay off the rest of your contract. They're like, look, you can get you 12. We can take this thing to trial if you want your money. So, anyway, he has gotten fired, and I've been unemployed a few times. I've been fired a few times. And, sometimes when you're fired, you just need a way to kill the time. You just need something to do to occupy yourself. And I'm going to read you something here. This is from the Knoxville News Sentinel. The story came out a couple of days ago, and the headline is former Tennessee coach Tyndall to make pro wrestling debut. And by pro wrestling, I mean wrestling. You heard me. Oh, yeah. But see, here's the thing. That's like big-time wrestling right there. That's the real wrestling. No. I'm talking about Global Force Wrestling, the Grand Slam Tour. Let me read some of this story for you, okay? Donnie Tyndall will coach again sooner than some thought. The former Tennessee men's basketball coach will appear ringside instead of courtside, though. Tyndall will make his professional wrestling debut when he guest manages a match during Global Force Wrestling's Grand Slam Tour stop on Saturday night at Smokies Park. Tyndall will coach the new Heavenly Bodies in their match against the Bullet Club in the evening's main event. They put out a press release for this and everything. He is going to be a ringside manager for some wrestlers called the Heavenly Bodies at Global Force Wrestling at Smokies Park in Knoxville. Now, look, I want to make sure you guys understand something, okay? What I'm saying right now doesn't apply to everybody that's in a similar situation, all right? Not everybody. Not everyone. It doesn't apply to all of y'all. But to Donnie Tyndall, because this situation hits me so near and dear in my heart right now as I hear it. Hey, man, if you need a little bit of bread, man, you know, I can't do but so much for you, but if you need to hold some dough, like, reach out to some of your friends and family. You know, don't be too proud to ask for help, because engaging in professional wrestling, like, the next thing for you to do is to go, like, run against horses. Like, this is the sort of thing that boxers do when they need bread, right? Because boxers, you become a big-time boxer, you get all the way up there in the world, and then you start spending all this money, and the problem the young people have, and boxers by and large when they get the money are young, the biggest problem the young people have is they don't have any concept of how long forever is, right? And they don't really have a concept of all the things that can come up, like the reasons why you need to save money. We were all broke a lot longer than we had savings because we always underestimated what you needed in savings. Then you go and you buy you a house, and the next thing you know, the air conditioner goes out, and you're like, well, how much did that cost to fix? $4,500. And now suddenly you realize you need to have $4,500 on hand, right? You don't know that when you're young. So then you blow the bread, and young people live on the premise, hey, man, I get paid next Friday. Right? Like, what's it matter? If you're a boxer, you made $20 million in this one fight. Not that many made $20 million, but you know what I mean. Say you made a couple $1 million in a fight. You made a couple $1 million in a fight, you pay out. Let's say by the time it's all said and done, you got $600,000. All right, you got $600,000 left. And you're running through that $600,000. And you're like, yo, it's no big deal. I'm going to make 1.2 for the next fight. And that's in 6 months. Right? Like, that's the way you live. That's the way you go. And when that runs out of gas, that's when those dudes start wrestling. And I know Donnie Tyndall is not actually going to be wrestling. He's simply going to be Mr. Fuji out there. But all I'm saying is this. If you have a professional reputation to maintain, you can't be out here participating in wrestling, man. And let me explain something to you. They got him out there being a ringside manager. Man, him being a ringside manager is not putting butts in the seats. He's going to have to do some variety of wrestling out there. Maybe he's going to have to hit somebody with a chair or something like that, right? But I think he's going to be out there on that Jim Cornette, out there with the tennis racket, and maybe he'll crack somebody in the head. But I'm going to tell you right now, you keep hanging out at these wrestling matches, my man, it ain't going to be long before they put you in some draws and some grease and make you go out there and do it yourself. Woo! Yeah, buddy. It's all fun and games, so they're telling you to put the grease on now, isn't it? They are not going to allow you to be the Doctor of Style slick forever. If you demonstrate that you're a draw, you're going to have to get out there and you're going to have to wrestle. None of this is a good look if you're trying to get another job. Like, I can only assume that if you're out here participating in a wrestling match, your attempts at finding a job have gone so poorly that you have effectively given up. Like the next stop in the train after getting out here and participating in wrestling is to get a tattoo on your neck. Just go ahead and kill all your earning potential right then and there for everybody to see. So, yeah, man, basketball coach at Tennessee. He's going to be out there as a ringside manager at Smokies Park in Knoxville for some wrestlers who are called the Heavenly Bodies. He hadn't even been off that job for a full year. I'm just going to make one suggestion to you, Donnie. Make sure they pay you in cash. They're known for shenanigans in that business. I don't care if it looks like a payroll check. Get it in cash and count it while you looking at them, standing right there. Bring one of your homeboys if you got to.
Bomani.
I'm on ESPN.com today. We got a byline from Chris Mortensen. Dez Bryant is contemplating not reporting to the Cowboys for the regular season opener unless he is signed to a long-term contract by July 15th. Here's what he says. This is no rumor. It's legit. Bryant told the NFL Network, confirming what sources familiar with the new receivers negotiation strategy earlier told ESPN.com. So let me just make sure I understand what's going on here, all right? So Dez has gotten the franchise tender. He hasn't signed it, so he's not under contract. So if he doesn't come to camp or he doesn't come to anything, it's not a holdout. Like, that's something that people observing need to be clear on. I know there's a lot of particulars to the way that these contracts work. It's not a holdout because he's not under contract until he signs the franchise tender, right? So he's saying if they don't sign him to a long-term deal by July 15th, that he'll skip the season opener and then he'll show up. If he does that and then shows up, the franchise tag is $12.823 million. Okay? So if he does not show up, if he doesn't show up, how much money are we talking about here? That's about $250,000? I don't know about you, dog, but I'm pretty sure that Dez Bryant's going to show up. That's $754,000, $294. I mean, $754,294.12. And he will be there to collect those 12 cents. Now, this is an interesting negotiation strategy, though, that he's using, I must admit. The reason why I find this to be so interesting is they've basically legislated the holdout out of football. Like the way the collective bargaining agreement works, they've legislated the holdout out of the game. If you do hold out, the fines are so punitive that the leverage is so strong for the team because you'd have to wait for so long to get any sort of payoff. That's not going to be the case here. This winds up being a lot more in line with what happened with Emmitt Smith in 1993. Now, there have been people who have referred to what Dez is doing as pulling in Emmitt Smith. What Emmitt Smith did in 93 was he held out. Jerry didn't want to give him the money because Jerry's weird. Jerry picks the guys that he does want to give the money to and the guys that he doesn't want to, and it's often illogical. I mean, it's often flat out illogical. Michael Irvin got his money. Troy Aikman got his money. Emmitt Smith did not get his money. On this team you got here, Jason Whitney always got his money with no problem. Tony Romo got his money, but that's totally understandable given the dynamics of the quarterback market. Sean Lee got his money. Never stayed healthy before, hasn't been healthy since. Dez Bryant having to scratch and claw to get his money. So Emmitt Smith held out, and he held out all the way through training camp. And the Cowboys are coming off their Super Bowl championship, right? He missed the first game. Cowboys lost. He missed the second game. Cowboys lost. What happened next? Jerry Jones came crawling, gave Emmitt Smith his money, and that was that. This is different, though, because that standoff wasn't going to end until Emmitt got his money. What Dez is basically saying is, if you don't give me my money by July 15th, I'm just not coming to work for the first game. That's not going to force the Cowboys to give him his money before the second one. That's going to take this all the way through the year, at which point the Cowboys probably lose him. I wanted to say that this is ridiculous. And before we went to the break, I was like, this is ridiculous. And I'm still not sold on the idea that he's about to walk away for $750,000. I'm just not. However, if you're the Cowboys, can you let Dez Bryant walk? Because I'd make the argument they can't. Like, no matter what happens, the end game of this for the Cowboys has to be that Dez Bryant stays. Why does the end game of this have to be that Dez Bryant stays? I don't know. He's the best player on your team. He is the best player on your team. Here's what I thought the Cowboys did last year that was really, really effective. With Tony Romo coming off that back injury, they couldn't ask Tony Romo to do as much. And they've always asked him to do way, way, way too much. You're asking Tony Romo to do too much in large part because this is a man who we have seen, he has trouble with pressure at times. I don't necessarily mean pressure in the pocket. I mean like pressure as a concept, as an idea, as a notion. Right? He occasionally struggles with that sort of thing. But with his back being what it was in the offensive line they had, they ran the ball, and then if you needed Tony to make a play, he could make a play for you. But you couldn't ask Tony Romo to do everything. So if we agree that the Cowboys for a while had asked Tony Romo to do too much and you can't ask Tony Romo to do everything, asking him to do it without Dez Bryant? Tony Romo is 35 years old right now. You're going to throw 36-year-old Tony Romo out there without one of the 3 or 4 best wide receivers in the league? Does that sound like a good idea to you? Because it doesn't sound like a good idea to me. If the Cowboys are looking at it from that perspective, then they might have to mess around and give Dez his money. Now, somebody made a point right fast. My man Mike says that don't forget that they didn't give DeMarco Murray his money either. But DeMarco Murray, I think, was in a different sort of situation. I think that the Cowboys played that right. They got all the yards out of DeMarco Murray, and the Eagles are going to be the ones who have to pay for all the carries. Like, once you have a guy that's getting 370, 380 carries in a year, whoo, boy, ain't but so much more you're going to have after that. Let Chip Kelly worry about that one. But with Dez, if we agree, and I think we all agree, that the quarterback is the rarest commodity that you have, and the Cowboys have a quarterback. While there are plenty of things to complain about with Tony Romo, you're not going out on the street to get somebody different, and you can't just bet on there being another Eli Manning out there. And what I mean by that is, who is a better quarterback, Tony Romo or Eli Manning? It's Tony Romo. Like, you go look statistically at anything that matters, it's Tony Romo. Tony Romo has been a better quarterback the entirety of his career than Eli Manning has been. The thing is, Eli Manning, you feel a lot better about him being your quarterback in the postseason, which is weird because you feel awful about him being your quarterback in the regular season. Could you trust Tony Romo? I never felt like you could trust Tony Romo. I don't think any of us ever felt like you could trust Tony Romo. You can kind of trust Eli Manning. So, my point being, you're not just necessarily going to find another guy out there like Eli Manning who is otherwise really not that good, but hey, if you get to the playoffs with him, he can turn into Joe Montana. Like, that guy's not out there. Tony Romo's your guy. Tony Romo's the guy that you got to ride out with. Are you really going to go out there with a 36-year-old quarterback and just sacrifice having a weapon as explosive as Dez Bryant as Jason Witten gets older? Like, are you going to do that? Are you going to take away that threat that makes that running game that much better and vice versa? Are you going to do that? My guess, probably not. Probably not. So let's see how this winds up going because, yeah, that is an interesting threat, but that threat is also a great way to offend the guy that you're negotiating with. And don't think for a second that Dez Bryant would not prefer to be with the Dallas Cowboys over any other option that'll be out there. No state income tax, and he's local, and they're the Cowboys.
And now, for Geico's edition of Stuff Found in Your Car, we go inside your side door pocket.
Hello, yes, the crumpled receipt with gum in it. From your anniversary dinner, you sprang for expensive wine, your server was Beth. That dinner was a couple $100. Money you could get back if you switched to Geico and saved hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. I bet you'd save that receipt. Frame it even. But really, where did I go wrong? Was it the corkage fee?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com today.
All guests join us on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Like our next guest, he comes to us from CBSSports.com. He covers the NBA. His name is Zach Harper. Zach, what's going on?
How you doing, Bomani?
I'm doing all right, man. Now, you are a bit more of a forward-thinking basketball observer, if I'm not mistaken. You have gotten on board kind of with the changing style of play in the league, and they gave us the Warriors, and it looked really bad for 3 games, and then holy smokes, Game 4.
Yeah, once they figured it out, and once they realized that they're going against a 6.5-man rotation with James Jones sometimes being a player, and they could just keep pushing the pace, they could go small, they could try to figure out a way to break that, kind of fatigue barrier for the Cavs. Once they figure that out, the floodgates just open. And I think that's what we expected to happen in the series. I think we expected it to happen before Game 4, but now that it's happened, I know it's 2-2, but it kind of just feels like they figured it out.
Well, it is kind of interesting that Golden State made the decision. Instead of letting LeBron beat us, we'll let Mozgov beat us, because Mozgov went for 30 points in that game because Golden State wasn't playing anybody that was big enough to deal with them, but it just didn't mean anything.
Yeah, that's the thing is they still got killed inside. They still gave up more points in the paint. They got killed on the offensive board. They got killed in second chance points. But you took away all the perimeter shooting, and it's one of those things where before it was, well, as long as we take away the passing of LeBron James, we can deal with him, hanging 35, 40 points on us as long as you keep him under, 8, 10 assists. But this time it was, let's just have that big guy shoot around the basket. We'll take care of everything else, and we'll just make them run.
We're talking to Zach Harper of CBSSports.com covering the NBA. Is there anything Cleveland can do, given that they've only got a 7-man rotation?
I guess they're now killing Blatt for not playing more guys, but who's he going to play? It's 2015. You can't play Mike Miller. You can't play Sean Marion. I know Norris Cole was in the building, but he's not on the team yet, so you can't put him in the game. I don't know what they're supposed to do. I guess you can hope that J.R. Smith gets hot. You can hope that Matthew Dellavedova gets the proper rest in 2 games to be able to knock down a jumper or 2. You can hope that Tristan Thompson, starts finishing these offensive boards with dunks, and that LeBron comes out and accounts for at least 60 points with his scoring and passing. But if they're gonna go small, you can't run with Golden State. You can only try to do what they did in the first 3 games. I just don't think you can do that against a small lineup.
Well, also, this with the small lineup begs the question: did you ever think you'd live long enough to where Andre Iguodala, NBA Finals MVP, sounds like it could happen?
It sounds like the pick right now, right? If the Warriors end up winning and these performances keep going like they are, he's been the best player on that team and the most important player. He's the one that's slowing down LeBron, and he's gotten out and made plays, and he's gotten out in transition, got some key dunks, and even at his height in Philly, I don't know that I ever thought, hey, that guy is definitely a starter on an NBA Finals championship, let alone the MVP.
Well, I think the other interesting part would be the irony of the fact that the guy we give the MVP to on the Warriors would be one of the guys who, can't shoot.
Right, can't shoot, and, this would be the second year in a row where we're so impressed by the defensive job done against LeBron James that we just decided that guy's the Finals MVP because that seems like a hard job to do.
Well, we're talking to Zach Harper, CBSSports.com, and I think that coming into this series, you would have thought that Stephen Curry would get it. Normally the best player on the best team is the guy that gets the NBA Finals MVP, at least over the course of the last 25 years. Part of the slowdown has been Dellavedova, but has there been anything else you've seen that slowed him down?
Yeah, I don't buy into this, Dellavedova has gotten in the head of Steph Curry or he's played such good defense that it's stopped him. If anything, Dellavedova does all this work off the ball, and he's been great at denying passes. Golden State gets in their offense by Curry bringing the ball to the floor, handing it off or passing it off to a big man around the top, and then he goes and runs around some screens and eventually gets it back. But Dellavedova's blown that up by denying him the ball when he doesn't have it, pretty well, and they force the ball out of his hands pretty well. But when Curry has the ball, Tristan Thompson has stopped Curry way more than Dellavedova has. Tristan Thompson's been the best defender on that team, and he's been the one blowing up pick and rolls, stopping Curry on when he switches, cutting off driving lanes. I mean, he's the one that's doing it. It's Dellavedova that, because he plays the same position as Curry in the series, that's what we're just blindly going, oh, well, the point guard struggles, the point guard must be defending him.
All right, we're talking to Zach Harper, CBSSports.com. What have you thought about the coaching on both sides in this series?
I was actually surprised with how little Kerr did until Game 4, and I get it. It's they believe they're the more talented team. They believe that their style of play would win out, and they felt they needed Andrew Bogut in the bigger lineups to go against Mozgov and Tristan Thompson to keep them off the boards. And I think they just thought, well, eventually the floodgates will open and we'll be fine. And he did have to adjust. He couldn't just kind of rest and wait for things to break their way. They had to force it. And so I was a little surprised with how slow he played this series. With David Blatt, I don't know what he can be expected to do. Again, I don't think their rotation is deep enough for him to play. You're not going to throw Brendan Haywood out there. You're not going to throw Joe Harris. You're not going to throw Kendrick Perkins or any of these guys. So I don't know that he can do a whole lot. He actually has to stay with J.R. Smith because they don't have anybody else, and you just have to pray that J.R. gets hot. You can't really take him away, and even when he's as bad as he was in Game 3.
Well, also looking at Golden State, they brought Bogut in late. They started with him in this series. They did 3 games of that. They realized that it did not work. Isn't it weird, though, just to consider the fact we're at a place in the NBA where you say, yeah, just go let that other 7-foot guy get all the baskets?
That's the new style, though, right? Everything's perimeter-oriented. Everything's spreading people out. And so you can afford to let the post-game be like a novelty act and be this thing where it's like this cool little side project that everyone has of like, oh, yeah, let's feed the big man a little bit and let him get going. But it doesn't fit today's NBA anymore. And that's why, you look at the best big men in the league, if you can't face up and hit a jumper, and Mozgov can do that a little bit, but Bogut can't. If you can't face up and hit a jumper, no one cares what you can do with your back to the basket.
All right, now, also in this series, we've had a lot of feel-good stories. That's been a thing. People look for the feel-good narrative. Are we kind of missing one in the fact that Shaun Livingston is both an NBA veteran and may get a chance to win a ring?
Yeah, I mean, and just think about, we know the knee injury and how hard he worked and how gruesome that was. But this was a guy that was a star prospect coming out of Peoria when he jumped to the NBA. And this was a guy who was going to be one of those revolutionary point guards. And I don't know that he was going to be Penny Hardaway or Magic Johnson by any means, but he was going to be that lanky 6'6" guy who could do a bunch of things. And what he did was, because of the injury, he had to reinvent himself, and he became this incredible post scorer, incredible defender, and he's like one of the most professional guys in the NBA. He's great at answering questions. He probably stays in the locker room too long to answer questions because he feels it's an obligation. And if he does get rewarded, if Andre Iguodala gets rewarded, those kind of guys, it's kind of cool to see that sticking around, reinventing yourself, you can still get that success.
All right, last question for Zach Harper, CBSSports.com. How do you think the series ends?
I think they figured it out. I mean, the first 3 games, I thought the Cavs controlled it perfectly, but once the Warriors figured out how to push the pace and get that early lead and make the Cavs chase them, I think it's over. I think they win the next 2 games and put this away in Cleveland.
Zach Harper, CBSSports.com, covering the NBA. My man, thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you.
Bomani.
The Twitter universe has created something that, well, is probably not the best thing for anybody else, which is the ability to get into an argument with just about anybody at any point in time. Like, no matter your mood, no matter where you are. Like, there used to be a time where you needed to be on the phone with somebody to get into an argument or be in the same room with them or anything else. Now you can just go seek out all these things and go find arguments. I know this because I argue with people a significant portion of my day. Like, I'm not separating myself from this. However, some people don't need to get into arguments. And, like, on one hand, one of those people is Antonio Cromartie. All right? And the reason Antonio Cromartie doesn't really need to get into a whole lot of public arguments is, all those kids, right? Like, I'm not the guy that judges Antonio Cromartie for all those kids. Like, not me. I just don't. I just don't really care. But I know how the rest of you guys get down. And there was that whole thing, on Hard Knocks where they made it look like he couldn't remember all their names. So he's the kind of guy.
Not 3, not 4.
Oh, that's harsh. That's harsh. Yeah, it's not those anyway, but yeah. Like, you'd think on one hand that that's a guy that doesn't need to get into public arguments with people, right? Okay. But there's somebody who needs to get into public arguments with people even less than him, and that is Kellen Winslow Jr. Now, when I say public arguments here, I mean public arguments where there really aren't any rules. Like, you get them both on first take sitting across the table from each other. There's kind of some rules. There's cameras there. There's all that stuff, man. But Twitter for football players, man, there really ain't no rules. Like, unless you're some kind of big star that can affect his money by going back and forth, there really are no rules. Like, Kellen Winslow is not going to lose his endorsement deal with McLaren for what he's sending across on the Twitter. Antonio Cromartie is not going to have to stop doing McDonald's commercials because he's been saying ridiculous things on Twitter. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not what it's going to be. That's not it. So there are no rules in this one. So anyway, a couple days ago, man, these cats started going back and forth, and I don't even remember what started it. I just know that Kellen Winslow said something about Antonio Cromartie that Antonio Cromartie did not like. Now, let me pull this up right fast. I want to make sure I get the words on this exactly right for you, because you can't ruin the comedy of what took place here, right? Like, never mind the comedy of the fact that I'm about to make a radio segment out of this whole thing happening, right? Totally about to do that. Totally about to do that. But if you are Kellen Winslow, you always have to remember that somebody at some point is going to say something to you about that time you got caught in the parking lot at Target. You guys remember that time that he got caught in the parking lot at Target? Kellen Winslow got caught in the parking lot at a Target where some people had called the police on him. And, I mean, he was just in his car minding his own business, right? And you can Google it if you don't know the particulars. But he was just in the car minding his own business with 2 separate open jars of petroleum jelly. Now, I am just as confused as you are about what the second jar was there for. I have no idea. But there were 2. And Antonio Cromartie remembered that, and he asked Kellen Winslow if he had been to Target lately on Twitter, and basically that's the end of the argument. Like, the next day, Kellen Winslow tried to come back at him and say something about learning your kids' names. Nah, buddy, I got bad news for you. When you get caught committing a crime such as the one that he got caught committing, there's nothing in the world that you can possibly say back. It's just not an option. You have to take that L on down the road. Like, you want to get back at a dude, you're basically calling him a deadbeat dad, too bad. You're the dude who got caught in the car at Target. There is nothing that you can say to anybody else in an argument with no rules after you were the dude that got caught in the parking lot at Target. Like, literally, not a single thing. Like, imagine this is high school. Imagine you're in high school and something like that happened to a dude in the parking lot at the school. He's not allowed to say anything about anybody, like, not till graduation. In fact, he can't even talk bad about anybody at the 10-year reunion. Like, he has sacrificed his right to tell any joke about anybody ever again, because at some point it's going to have to come up. Like, I can't just let you win an argument because I should feel bad about what you got caught doing. So that's Kellen Winslow. And I will give Kellen Winslow credit for this, by the way. And the telephone number, by the way, is 888-729-3776. I will give Kellen Winslow credit for doing something that I don't think any of us thought was possible. And that is that he somehow topped the soldier rant. Like, think about that. That whole I'm a soldier thing in the locker room. Now, I was always inclined to let him slide a little bit for I'm a soldier. And the reason that I was inclined to let him slide is that he was young, right? He was something like 19 years old or something like that. You know, he got caught up. He got a little bit emotional. You know, the soldiers were a big deal in the music back in the day. You know, I can see how a cat in his position would wind up being all emotional. He had all those cameras in his face. Although people I've talked to who were there said it was just the funniest thing that they've ever been witness to in their lives. Like, the single funniest thing they ever could have imagined. I want to know what all those people thought when they read about my man in that car at Target. That's all I want to know. Because somehow he managed to pop the soldier rant.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones. Weeknights from 9 to 11 Eastern or on demand at ESPNradio.com.